Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Peter Britton. I'm the Managing Director of the UK for Mynewsdesk. I'm actually here today to introduce you to Andrew Marcus, Deputy Head of Communications for the Museum of London. Andrew's previous background was working across agencies such as Bell Possenger, Chocolate PR and the Science Museum. So he's going to actually talk today a bit about YouTube and a case study he did there. So I welcome aboard.
Great, well, thank you very much for the intro. So, is this... Anyway, I will begin. Hopefully the PowerPoint will catch up in a second. One of the two. So, my name's Andrew Marcus. I'm Deputy Head of Communications at the Museum of London. So today, I'm going to tell you about how we're making the most of our content to achieve some business objectives. And I think you'll probably be quite surprised to see how the kind of business objectives we work to. People often think of museums as those sort of rusty old public sector organisations, but that's not the case anymore. So, how we're using content to raise awareness and increase footfall. I'm going to give you a bit of background to the Museum of London and our objectives. And then talk about one particular case study. I'm also going to talk to you about our target audiences, because when you understand that, you'll understand a bit more about what we do, why we do. And in the interests of the medium being the message, I'm going to show you a nice selection of YouTube videos throughout, and it also means that I get an opportunity to have a glass of water. It's something also to tell you, so my philosophy is that museums are absolutely brimming with content. So we don't really have the challenge that a lot of you face of finding that content, but we do have the challenge of how we exploit it. And actually it's really nice. There's quite a few people here from arts and heritage and museums, which is really surprising, really pleased to see. So hopefully you'll find that particularly relevant. So where to begin? I'm going to start by showing you a film we created last year to accompany the rollout of our 5-year strategic plan. So we had a new CEO, new strategic plan. This will all be very familiar to you. And because we use YouTube very proactively for both consumer and corporate comms, and again, I think that's a bit of a point of difference. Loads of people are using YouTube for consumer, but not necessarily corporate in the way that we do, in a sort of light-hearted way. We obviously thought we'll create a video. So I'm going to show you that. Hopefully it should play.
The Museum of London tells the story of this city, but a city is about the people. The people who built it, the people who live in it, and we want to inspire a passion for London by unleashing the power that's locked behind these bastion walls. We want to reach more people. That means going from 650,000 visitors a year to 1.5 million visitors. We want to become better known, and that means engaging with topical issues that really matter to Londoners. We want to stretch thinking, our own thinking and the public's thinking, so that when we do an exhibition or publish a book, it will really make people think differently about London. And this will be grounded in strong, robust academic research. Currently, we reach about 105,000 school children. That's a fantastic number, but we want to get to 850,000. That means going out of our walls into classrooms. And finally, we want to stand on our own 2 feet more. We're really grateful for the funding that the public give us through the GLA and through the Corporation of London, and also through organisations like Arts Council England. But we know that we can generate more money ourselves and provide better value to the taxpayer. I'm most looking forward to seeing all those moments that are going to take place, such as cracking exhibitions, great events, wonderful pieces in the media, which really make people draw breath. Behind these walls is such a fantastic collection. Beautiful costumes, Roman artifacts. It's amazing. A particular favourite of mine is, of course, Michael Caine. Cool, sophisticated, funny and sexy. And that's what I think London is. I'm really looking forward to Exhibitions such as the Cheapside Hoard. It's never been on display before in such a magnificent way. A museum has all sorts of potential and ability to transform people's lives. We can help to make this a truly great world city.
In case you're wondering, my colleague Laura was holding up, like that in the film, Tom Daley's swimming trunks. So the actual trunks Tom Daley dived in the 2012 Olympics, and they're on display in the museum. Probably our most Instagrammed object by a very particular kind of person. But anyway, so that is our strategic plan. Takes us up to March 2018. And our two most important objectives from my point of view as a comms person is to increase footfall from 650,000 visitors to 1.5 million a year by becoming better known, raising our profile. So really sort of standard classic communications objectives, but not many organisations articulate them as the top two objectives in their strategic plan. And it's huge weight on our shoulders, but also makes it quite exciting. I am pleased to report we actually went from 650,000 to 1 million in year one of the plan. So how we're going to go forward to the next 500,000 a year is going to be really difficult, but hopefully we'll make it. So that's our plan. I'm going to talk you through our target audiences, of which two are on the screen now. We've got a really sophisticated word of mouth strategy, and I'll explain why. And again, I think this is quite unique to us. So we have what we call leading audiences, or primary market segments, and they're the thought leaders. So this is why I've put thought leading audiences. The idea is where they go, the others will follow, and the others are our core audiences, and they make up the bulk. So who are these people? In the yellow, we have a woman, we call her a London insider. This will be very familiar to you. So London insiders are the kind of people that they might live in Hackney, cycle to a job in the creative industries on Old Street, and if they tell you they've been to the Museum of London, you say, because they're pretty cool, what they've gone to go to is obviously, it's on the money, hot ticket, it's hip. So that's why we target them. The other group, the red group, are cultural connoisseurs. Now, cultural connoisseurs are your culture vultures. They're members of the Tate, the Royal Academy, and if there's a good opera in New York, they'll fly to see it. Now, if they say to you, I went to the Museum of London, you'll think, because they know culture, they're really tapped into the world's best culture. If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. So these two groups make up around 20% of our audience, which is nothing, but we invest a lot of time and energy into targeting them. So the next four groups. Of our core audiences, they're split into four. So the first one that won't surprise you from a museum is on the yellow. This is a learning family. So what sets a learning family apart from other families are that they want to mix an activity with learning, quite sort of Ronsil. So when the kids come home and they say, Mum, we learned about the Romans this week at school, the parents can go, phew, we can take you to the Museum of London on Saturday, you'll learn about the Romans and you'll have a good time. So that's learning families. Then green, we have a self-developer. Now, my mum is a classic self-developer. So my family, we come from Essex, but before that, East End of London, and my mum's really into family history. So she goes to Museum of London Docklands, our East End museum, to sort of augment her genealogical research. Or it might be someone that's really into Dickens, they've read everything, and they went to our Dickens in London exhibition. So those are self-developers. Now the next two groups, in the darker blue, it's actually Piccadilly line blue, is this is a family group that we call day trippers, but it's an adult family group. So these are really mainstream people. They read The Sun, they watch ITV, and they're the kind of people that the parents might be coming to London for the weekend, and I think you're probably all familiar with this. Your parents coming to London for the weekend and they say, what are we going to do this weekend? And you go, oh no, I've got to plan something. And you go to quite a mainstream experience. So somewhere like the British Music Experience, maybe the Tate because it's got high awareness. And the Waterloo and City Line coloured guy is an intellectual tourist. Now this is our global market segment. Intellectual tourists have been to London 1, 2, 3, 4 times before. They've done the big stuff, they've seen Big Ben, they've walked over Tower Bridge, they've done all of that, and now they want to get under the skin of the city. This is actually a big shift for us. When I joined the Museum of London, we were all about getting people to visit on their first visit to London. Come to the Museum of London and then it all makes sense. We know that doesn't work. That strategy did not work. So it's now about taking people who are interested in culture. They might be members of MoMA in New York or something like that. And when they come to London, they want to get under the skin of this world famous city. So we define these audiences. We then did a bit of research into finding out what media outlets they consume. And actually, within our top 10 media outlets, as well as The Guardian, BBC One, BBC Online, The Sunday Times, we had Facebook and YouTube. So this has justified quite a big investment for us in YouTube. And I'm now going to talk through a case study. So in that first video, you heard our CEO Sharon mention the Cheapside Hoard. In 1912, some workmen in the city, on Cheapside if you know it, right underneath Banana Republic, or where Banana Republic is now, found by chance the world's finest collection of Elizabethan and Jacobean jewels. It had not been on display in its entirety for 100 years. And this stuff is so rare, it just doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. And up until April, it was on display at the Museum of London. So we were targeting cultural connoisseurs because we know they love high culture. The jewellery is so phenomenal, of course they're going to love it. Self-developers, because it had this really interesting story, tells you a lot about trade, immigration in Tudor times, also tells you about the Great Fire, Civil War, the Plague, because all these things might have been why it was buried. We just don't know, it's a real mystery. And intellectual tourists. So again, there's people coming from abroad, they know London, maybe they know the City of London, the city with a big C, the square mile, and they want to find out a little bit more about the history of the area. So, based on our insight, YouTube was our primary channel for social media. And we took a real content marketing approach to this. We produced 5 videos which we rolled out over the course of the campaign. I'm going to show you the first one, and then I'll show you a few others and explain how they differ, but not all of them. Now the first one I think is really exciting as a PR person, so we will show you that.
I think that the Cheapside Hoard going on display for the first time in 100 years is the most important thing that's happened in jewellery in London for generations. It's so exciting to see this collection of jewellery that's been sleeping. It's like this sleeping beauty that's suddenly been rediscovered, and it gives us an idea of the social history of how everyone lived then, how they wore their jewellery, how they made their jewellery. And we have the same visual experience as the people who were commissioning it then, who might have gone along to Cheapside to have a look at it, to have a talk with the goldsmith, and certainly the same as him as he actually buried it and obviously intended to go back to collect it. The first thing I thought when I saw the Cheapside Hoard was how incredibly fresh it was. The colours, the work, the gold, how it just is still absolutely alive and vibrant. It's as if it came out of the workshop yesterday. I think why the Cheapside Hoard resonates so loudly with me and is so exciting is that I can recognise in it things that we definitely are doing now, trends that we're wearing. There's a lot of sliced stones, and there's a big fashion now for sliced diamonds, long chains. We're wearing them long, loose, over jeans. They might have pinned them up on their bodice with a brooch. What I'm thinking for this winter is white. I think there's a lot of white coming through. There's agates, there's mammoth tusks, white sapphires, obviously diamonds, watches are white, and scroll back and we can see that they were wearing a lot of white then. The fashion doesn't translate down the centuries, whereas the jewellery completely you can incorporate into what you're wearing and it translates. I mean, you could imagine any of the Cheapside Hoard going onto the front cover of Vogue and people would look at it and say, oh, where can I get that? The collection tells us so much, and I think this is why jewellery is so important in our lives.
So why is this video so exciting for me? It's basically the new version of a quote. In the past, I mean, most of us in here are PR people. We would have phoned up this woman, Carol Walton from Vogue, and said, you are the authority on jewellery. Can you give us 50 words for our press release? And that's all well and good, and there's a time and a place for that. But having a filmed interview with this real advocate and thought leader has been incredibly powerful. It's probably a good moment for me to tell you that we're not relying on people finding our content organically. And I think you have to be really honest about this now. If you think you can make a video, put it on YouTube and people will watch it, it won't happen. We tried a little bit of money for seeding this video, and that kickstart can be incredibly powerful. So we generated about 13,000 views for this from a £500 spend on seeding. Now, £500 isn't much money, it's kind of quite a lot of money for us. 13,000 views, for a lot of you won't be many views, but when this is the first sustained YouTube campaign, it is quite a big deal. Equally, that video is fantastic for giving to people for blogger engagement, and we have that as B-roll. So that was used by broadcasters as well. So I'm going to show you one of the other videos to show you a slight difference in how we created them. So the next video is a really short, snappy teaser, and you'll see a real difference. So the purpose of this was to sit on our website so that everyone that visited the right page on our website saw this video and thought, wow, it's really dramatic, must go and see this exhibition. And it's kind of hard to get across the drama without seeing the exhibition for itself, but that gives you a sense of two different ones. And finally, as I said before, we're using a lot of videos for corporate purposes. Now, being a museum, we do a lot of fundraising. One of the ways we do fundraising and public affairs is to host big launch events and launch parties. We get the important people in the room so we can say to them, look, the Museum of London matters. You might be at a party, but you can see there's 1,000 people here, or in fact for this exhibition 1,200, it was immense. There are 1,200 people here because the Museum of London is important. So naturally we create a video of the party, which then we send out 24 hours later to all our fundraising prospects. So it gives you that instant tool to say, look, you might not have been at the party, but this is why it's important and this is what people had to say about it, and I will show you that now.
They sound like particularly rare, incredible gems, and it's such an amazing discovery story, and so I'm just really excited to learn a bit more about it and read the whole story and actually see what they found.
It's like going back in time to see antique jewellery and something special and beautiful stones and the unexpected, you know, things that you haven't seen anywhere.
I grew up, you know, with the Goonies and Indiana Jones, and I think the idea of thinking you're walking over treasure or jewels or whatever it could be, it goes back to being a kid again. Everyone just finds that really endearing and really interesting.
I think everybody's fascinated by history about what people did 400 years ago, and I think the jewellery reflects possibly that.
As a collection, it is perfectly magnificent. A grouping of jewelry that's that technically perfect and that made that long ago, it's just amazing.
Even all the most incredible jewels, if it's given out of love, it becomes a real token and something you wear against your body and you really enjoy. So jewelry to me is, yeah, it's a symbol of affection and love.
Well, I mean, it's obviously an incredible story. I mean, you can't really imagine how those workers must have felt when they found those jewels. And to have them displayed like this in their entirety is just really incredible.
I wasn't into the bling. I mean, what was it was the backstory for me that was exciting. and you know how this was left and the mystery that surrounds it. So it's a detective story. I love that.
You know, diamonds have become popular now, but colored stones is where the real beauty of nature is, you know.
This is a sort of dream story come true, and you can actually come and see it.
It feels like it was destined to be discovered, and the fact that we can get up close and personal to these precious, beautiful things is just a wonderful thing to experience.
I think it's a magical combination of an amazingly important collection with an incredibly romantic story, and it's just fantastic. I can't say any more, really.
So we're all very used to doing events in PR, but they're kind of ephemeral, they happen, and they've gone. Creating something like this gives us a legacy and an asset we can use again and again and again. It's on our blog, it's sent out to fundraisers, and again it goes back to that point of we could have got these people to put a quote in a press release, but that's not very interesting, that's kind of old-fashioned, so let's have them talk about why this is cool. So, did it work? As I said, we have some quite serious business objectives. I'm pleased to say it did. I wouldn't be here telling you about it if it hadn't. We targeted 75,000 visitors, and in 6 months, we got almost 130,000. Now, this isn't down to these videos alone. We had a fantastic ad campaign. We had the best media coverage we have ever had for a single project. And what's really interesting is this exhibition is now our most popular ever. It beats our previous most popular exhibition, London Street Photography, which was free, which again shows that when you promote good quality culture, well, through good quality content, you can drive visitors. Now, looking specifically at YouTube, because this was a pilot, it was important to commission some analysis. So because I don't have that data mindset myself, we got an agency called Bloom to look at the Google Analytics. And what they found was 90% of people who watched one of our Cheapside Hoard videos and then visited our website, left our website on the ticket purchasing page. Now, we can't look at an exact conversion because I don't know if any of you work in businesses with ticket buying, but it's kind of complicated, and guessing the tagging systems running through is difficult with suppliers. But to know that 90% of people watched a video, searched Cheapside Hoard or Museum of London, came to our website and then left on the page where you could buy a ticket is really, really compelling. Now, what else did we learn? We also learned that it wasn't that clear what the objective of the videos were. Were they sales, driving conversions, that marketing tool, or were they awareness raising, that traditional PR tool? And it's interesting that through looking at analytics, you can pick that up. So in October, we open a fantastic exhibition about Sherlock Holmes. We said the man who never lived and will never die. It's going to be phenomenal. So the big learning for that is for Sherlock Holmes, we will have a sort of central hub video, which is snappy video designed to convert to sale. It's not editorial. Most of the videos we create, I like to say, are like watching the One Show. That won't be. But spinning off from that will be 5 very editorial videos bringing different aspects of the content to life. And we'll see if we can get people that want to find out more, finding out more, and people that want to be sucked in and buy a ticket to buy a ticket. But we will know that through analytics. So, has this contributed to our overall business objectives? Well, it probably won't surprise you to hear that I have another video. This is the annual review this year. You're some of the first people to have seen it, so I'll show you that and then I'll tell you a little bit about it.
We're a passionate museum filled with passionate people, and our job is to inspire a passion in London. Last year was the first year of our 5-year strategic plan, and frankly it's been quite phenomenal in terms of what we've achieved. We set some really high targets in terms of visitors, becoming better known, standing on our own 2 feet, engaging every school child in London. We've bust every target. One of our big targets was to stretch thinking about London and to stretch thinking in terms of our visitors' minds. We've been working with Londoners, we've been seeking the views of thought leaders, and our staff have all been inputting into this framework which will enable us to say, Which parts of the history of London will we focus on? What topics will we collect objects for? And how will we shape our future programmes? The Cheapside Hoard was a phenomenal success. It attracted worldwide publicity and brought over 100,000 people to see the exhibition. Finances will always be a pressure, which was why last year we took immediate action to cut £1 million out of our costs. That set us up for the years to come, a very important and difficult thing. We've also established ways in which we are going to generate more income. We're in partnership with the GLA and the Corporation of the City of London and Arts Council England. Those three bodies really support the museum and help us to achieve all that you can see around you.
The challenges faced by the museum this year, I recognise well as a new chairman. The first is to embed a new organisation structure. The second is to continue to work very hard on the content. The third is the way in which we think about fundraising. And then finally, we need a new entrance to our building so that it is much more visitor friendly.
One of my greatest memories of last year was celebrating the Museum of London Docklands 10th anniversary, and we did this with a fantastic exhibition called Estuary. This next year brings a whole programme of wonderful activities. Bridge exhibition at Docklands develops on from last year's Estuary exhibition. Bridges are hugely important to London, to Londoners.
I'm immensely proud that the Museum of London will be hosting a Sherlock Holmes exhibition.
Sherlock is our exploration of the phenomenon that is Sherlock Holmes. The largest object in our collection is the Thomas Heatherwick Olympic Holder. That's going on show here at London Wall in the summer.
This is a fabulous organisation and it always excites a passion in me when I come through the front doors.
I can see all around me how we are positively impacting people's lives.
Just to conclude, as we're here talking about content marketing, I'm just going to pick up on a point in that video. So you heard Sharon talk about our new 4 priorities for content, what we'll collect, what we'll talk about, and this in our language, we're calling a content framework, but in everyone else's is our editorial strategy. This will be really important for us, and I think the thing that sets what we're doing apart from other organisations where it's seen that content sits with comms is this infiltrates everything we do, right down to the building. Literally everything we do. So hopefully you will see that we are incredibly serious about content. We'll have our 4 priorities, which I think, if I remember rightly, are City Now, City Future, Creative Capital, Global City and Iconic London. And you'll be able to see those threads through everything. So where we do open our bridge exhibition next week, well, that talks about, are there enough river crossings in London? I mean, we're right by the Emirates airline. Does that address the problem? Is it a problem in itself? All that kind of thing. We'll engage with that topical issue. Then we open Sherlock Holmes exhibition in October. Do come and see it, it will be wonderful. And for a lot of people, UK and abroad, Sherlock Holmes is the archetypal, iconic Londoner. So we're going to tell that story and talk about the London that inspired the stories because, for obvious reasons, he's not real. So that's where we are at the Museum of London. I hope you thought that was interesting. I've got some time to answer questions, if anyone has them. Oh, it looks like there's one at the back.
When you said you spent £500 on seeding the video, what exactly did that 500 go on? Was it ads? Was it paying people? What was it?
Do you know what? That's really interesting. Partially because we don't really know. Because what you'll find is, and I think a lot of you are in the same position, you can ask someone to do a seeding campaign and they'll do it and you'll get views and you'll never know how it worked. We're not going to do that again. And partially because public sector, we have to be transparent, but also as good comms professionals, we want to be transparent. So now we're starting to look at other options, whether it is a sustained blogger engagement campaign just around one video, or it's using the video as display ad, pre-roll on YouTube, all that kind of thing. So we know that a bit better. Basically, there are some companies which we did use, and I won't name them, that you can give them some money and some magic will happen. I wouldn't recommend that, but that did kickstart it quite nicely. I think for £500 they guaranteed us 6,000 views and we got 13,000. So it worked, but there are drawbacks. Anyone else?
Hi, just wanted to ask a question about, came in a bit late, so I may have missed this, but did the content you created, the video and all that kind of thing, are you doing that with in-house teams? Are you bringing in people to do that?
No, we're doing it with external suppliers. It's in effect executive produced by a member of my team. So we have a small team, but I have a dedicated web and social media person who produces all of our videos. We then outsource it to, at the moment, 2 different companies, depending on the kind of video. So our really corporate work, like the strategic plan and the Carol Walton video, that goes to quite a corporate video production agency. The more fun stuff, we use a 2-man band from Oxfordshire who do really cool stuff, really good with animation. We did weigh up the cost benefit of bringing that in-house because we're not the only video producers. If you see a video in an exhibition at the Museum of London, it's been commissioned by us. Our learning department use video a lot for engaging with school children. But actually, we probably made 12 videos last year just in communications, so probably 25 videos across the organisation, and it was still cheaper to outsource rather than investing in people and in equipment. Because this is another thing, cameras aren't cheap and we'd have to buy new software. I mean, everyone knows this stuff, but we're outsourcing for the time being.
Okay, thanks.
Hi Andrew, really interested by the use of YouTube for an annual report. Not at all, because I've got mine coming out later this year. How did you find giving your chief exec a script to kind of deliver and getting that to come out in a natural way? Because that can be quite a challenge.
Yeah. Actually, disclosure, my chief exec is Chloe's old chief exec. We didn't. So we're in a really lucky position where our chief executive and our chairman own things like the annual report, the strategic plan, in a way that I've never, ever seen before. So working with the production company, we just teed up some questions and prepared them for it. To get those 3-minute videos, that's 2 hours of filming with each one. What we did was we had on hand, me from a PR perspective, and our numbers woman. So if any of you have corporate planners, we had her on hand as well to verify every number as we went through. We discussed the tone and what was said in the questions at every moment, particularly with the chairman. He knew what he wanted to say, and so it was more a case of shaping his expectations, but we didn't script it. And from my experience, where we have scripted things, they look a bit flat. So some of our curators, who are our primary spokespeople, in the beginning would come to us and they say, okay, you're going to make this video, I'm going to spend the next few days writing a script. And we'd say yes, because we just wanted them to be in a video. And you can really tell when they've written it before compared to where it was done as an interview and spliced up. So that if someone's really demanding a script, we'd give them key messages, but that would be it. As I say, it's that authenticity of they owned the plan, they knew it inside out.
Andrew, thanks. Just wanted to ask about the budget. You said you made 12 videos last year. What was the total cost of that?
That's a good question. That's probably about, trying to work it out in my head, it's probably about £20,000. The corporate videos cost a lot more. The animation, the overlaying costs a bit more, whereas this 2-man band are a cheaper supplier. We, again, going back to the point about organic reach, what we've now done is, so our social media budget has marginally increased year on year, but only marginally, and that's taking away money from elsewhere. we're now going to make less videos and put money aside for distribution. Equally, the thing that's come as a bit of a shock to us is, and I think to lots of us, we loved the fact that you could get good organic reach on Facebook, and now you can't. So our marketing team weren't using Facebook advertising in the past. Luckily they are now, but also I'm having to invest in Facebook advertising for my social media budget because otherwise no one sees the great content we create. And so I think this is a message we all have to hammer home to our finance directors, is that, well, we all know it doesn't come for free, but also, as well as inflation, it's just getting more expensive because the people that run the social media networks can't run their businesses for nothing. So, yeah, that's it. Any more for any more? Great, okay, cool. Thanks very much. Oh, sure, I can answer it, so apparently it's 5 minutes on the clock, so.
I'm just interested in the social media aspect of what you're doing and how you do outreach to school kids who technically shouldn't really be on all of the social media platforms.
No, we don't do outreach on social networks.
Right.
So our strategic plan says over 5 years we will engage with every school child in London. Our social media policy, because we're a museum, is very, very strict about not just school children, but anyone under 18. What we do aspire to do is more with teachers. We have amazing classroom resources. I don't know if anyone's from teaching organisations, but the shake up to the national curriculum meant really big things for teachers. For example, you now have to teach pre-history to really young kids. No one was teaching pre-history. Luckily, we can help teachers teach prehistory. So we're doing that. So we might want to create groups. We have an informal thing called the Teachers Network that we do some email marketing to. We might want to bring them in sort of B2B way, but it's something for the future. But you're absolutely right. We do not engage with children on social media. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's exactly the kind of thing we may do. Absolutely. I might drop you an email later. Yeah. Cool. I'll leave it there. So thank you very much.